have to worry about rain. Once you mesh some of this stuff, you know it's going to work.
For better grass control than dual or lasso, ask a farmer about Eradicate. Hey, I'll take one of those.
Ask yourself,
I know what he's...
when was the last time you threw a TV commercial in the garbage? TV advertising. You're spending for impact. Why not get it?
The future of our nation is in the hands of our children. The type of adults these kids grow up to be is up to us. Get involved in a child's life. Find out what's going on at your neighborhood school. Volunteer to help with a youth organization. Our kids need us to lead them into a drug-free, productive future. Call these numbers today. Find out how you can make a difference in a kid's life. Take the time to share. The future of our children depend on you.
Tonight on WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
You're watching the news on Channel 4. It's 5 o'clock.
Good afternoon. There is a race in space going on right now between the shuttle Columbia and a sinking satellite.
Columbia got off the ground today after a 3-week delay. So even though nobody planned it that way, this became the first shuttle mission of the new decade. It is also one of the most important missions in the history of the shuttle program. For one thing, it will be one of the longest missions to date, 10 days in space, preparing the way for even longer missions later this year. But the most important part of the mission is to rescue a science satellite before it falls out of orbit. If the satellite hits the Earth's atmosphere and burns up, 6 years worth of scientific data will be lost forever. NASA engineers say finding the satellite in orbit will be like hunting a speck in the sky. And once they find it, they have to get it safely aboard. No easy job with a satellite the size of a small school bus. If all goes as planned, Columbia will rendezvous with the satellite this Friday morning after launching a Navy communications satellite tomorrow.
In other world news this afternoon, General Manuel Noriega is scheduled for a detention hearing in Miami this afternoon. A judge has considered moving him to a federal prison elsewhere in the United States for greater security. The U.S. government today released its official estimate of the number of Panamanians killed in the invasion last month, 314 soldiers. It also says 220 civilians died. The government says it is just an estimate. In Boston, police scuba divers found the gun that may have been used to kill Carol Stewart. It was at the bottom of a river where her husband Charles reportedly had his brother dispose of the gun after the shooting. American education got a mixed report card in the national study released today. While students showed a small improvement in their reading skills when it comes to writing, the report says the students of 1988 showed no improvement at all over the students of 1974. Colleen.
The State Board of Education today passed a controversial new rule requiring school districts to offer more high-level academic classes. Small districts will be affected the most because the mandate could force many of them to hire more teachers or to bus students to nearby districts. The law will likely cause some schools to share teachers or to consolidate certain courses. The required changes include additional classes in math, world languages, and in health.
I kind of get a personal kick out of it because it has nothing to do with choice. In fact, it's the opposite. So on one hand, while they're saying, isn't it great that Minnesota has choice, on the other hand, he said, you better take these courses or else.
Although schools are now required to offer the new classes, the students are not required to take them. The idea is to give all of the state students the opportunity to take advanced courses that are necessary for college entrance requirements. Prominent Minneapolis attorney Tom Borman was named by Governor Perpich today as Minnesota's new Commerce Commissioner. Borman replaces Mike Hatch, who left office yesterday to consider running against Perpich. Pat Kessler reports.
How do I...
After promising to stay on until his successor was named, Hatch abruptly cleaned out his desk yesterday. When we caught up with him, there was one personal item he wouldn't let us see.
Let me see. Well, no. It says Hatch for governor. Yeah, but I can't do that on state time. I get in big trouble.
It is Hatch's political ambitions that brought on the resignation. And the governor said today Hatch's expected entry in the race would spoil his summer.
You have to work 18, 20-hour days, and the hot July sun kind of melts some of those candidates, I think.
Borman, meanwhile, is a longtime Democratic fundraiser who's leaving a lucrative law practice. He says his job will be to mend fences with businesses alienated by the sometimes controversial Hatch.
To let them know that that they can also be heard
and that they have someone who's interested in their concerns. So I think I would probably take a somewhat less adversarial role than Michael.
With this latest shuffle in the Perpich cabinet, it's hard to escape the feeling the campaign is now engaged. Hatch is expected to announce his candidacy within a couple of weeks. Pat Kessler, WCCO Television News.
Despite the flurry of political activity, only Governor Perpich has officially declared his candidacy for office. Besides Hatch, Senate Majority Leader Roger Moe is also considering a bid for the governor's office.
New president today for the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. He's Gerald L. Olson of Fairmont, an Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Bush administration. He replaces Wynn Borden at that post.
It's time now to check in with Matt for the first look at the weather today.
A little more winter-like out there.
It was,
indeed. I think we've been spoiled with those 40-degree readings, but a little more winter-like, and it's been a little blustery out there at times. In fact, this morning we had a low temperature of 25, and we've only had a high temperature with the clouds out there of 30 degrees so far today, and that looks like that will be the high for the day. Right now, still some winds out of the southwest at about 12 miles an hour. 25 is the temperature. The wind chill 7. We'll have some clearing tonight with a low of 17, and we're in the middle of what can be considered the January thaw. We'll talk more about the January thaw in detail and how long it's going to last coming up later in this half hour. Colleen?
All right, thank you, Matt. A dozen Boy Scouts from the Twin Cities and Wisconsin are back home after spending 10 days in the country of Costa Rica patrolling beaches to protect turtles. The boys walked the beach all night and got a chance to see hundreds of leatherback turtles laying eggs. The Scouts say they turned away Costa Rican poachers who tried to steal the turtle eggs for food. The leatherbacks and their eggs are endangered.
Really don't think of them as being large, and then there's these huge reptiles that just kind of waddle up the beach, and it's sort of neat to watch.
The 12 boys from the Indian Head Council were the first American scout group to help save the turtles. And I was in Costa Rica recently and spoke to the president's wife who spearheads this effort, and she says the people there have such high respect for Boy Scouts that they can deter people more than the police can.
And so now protection of the turtles in the hands of the Boy Scouts in Costa Rica.
Costa Rican Boy Scouts and the American Boy Scouts.
That's terrific. Still to come this afternoon on the 5 o'clock news. Next, we're going to talk with CBS newsman Dan Rather, who is doing a broadcast now from the Twin Cities tonight. Later, at about 5:20, an entertainment report. Bill Carlson explains why comedian Dan Aykroyd has taken on the serious role in his new movie. Later at 5:25, a medical report. And Cheever reports on a group of activists urging people not to be tested for the AIDS virus.
This is the 5 o'clock news on Channel 4 with Don Shelby, Colleen Neeldes, and the rest of the Channel 4 news team.
When I have a flare-up, the paper definitely makes it worse. Scratchy, pain.
Just like sandpaper.
Now there's a lotion to help prevent the pain, but it doesn't come in a bottle. It comes on a roll. Introducing Charmin Care with baby lotion in every sheet.
Baby lotion? Is that what it is?
It glides across my skin. It's very soothing.
Even though it's made for people with sensitive skin like hemorrhoids, it would be great for anyone to use.
New Charmin Care with baby lotion. Pain prevention on a roll.
Mr. Morrison has just left his lights on. Mrs. Morrison is pregnant, very pregnant. So the Morrisons could be in trouble.
David, it's time.
Big trouble.
Oh, my gosh. Let's not panic.
Fortunately, the Morrisons have the new Champion Switch battery.
The hood.
If it ever goes dead, just switch to the reserve and start your car. Switch back, and the main battery recharges. Get the new Champion Switch, the battery with a spare, at Montgomery Ward.
Come here, I want to show you something. Come on, it's about your furniture. Here's a typical chair. The way it looks before Park begins custom fitting your new upholstery. See this piece of webbing? It should be replaced, so Park does it. These springs, Park automatically reties them. At Park, we take pride in what we do, so you'll be proud of what you get. Join thousands of satisfied Park customers during our famous 20% off sale. Call today for a home appointment. You'll be glad you did.
If you're over 65, what are you doing for fun? Ask them. A whole audience of Golden Girls with Virginia Graham next time.
Wednesday at 8 on Channel 4.
This is part of the newscast where we normally concentrate on medical or consumer news, but today we're going to do something just a little bit different because we have a chance to talk to our special guest in the newsroom today. Dan Rather speaks tonight to the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce, and he's brought the CBS Evening News with him. Members of the CBS News staff have set up shop just down the hall in our other studio, and Dan Rather will broadcast the evening news from there in just about, not long, 21 minutes or so.
But now he has graciously agreed to spend a few minutes talking with us. Welcome to the Twin Cities. It's good to have you here.
Delighted to be here. Thanks a lot.
You know, something we have noticed has been a tumultuous past year, and we have seen you and the other anchors in Tiananmen Square and in Berlin and in all the other world events. We've seen you on locations. Curious, why is that better to have you on the scene, and what does that add, do you think, to the coverage to have the network anchors there?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I don't know about the others. One, I don't think it's always an advantage. You know, sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we go and perhaps we shouldn't, and sometimes when we get there we find, well, maybe we shouldn't be there. But in something such as Tiananmen Square, I think the advantage to the viewer, and after all, that's the only thing that counts. The advantages are these. One, I don't want to be the kind of managing editor or anchor person that makes judgments on stories locked in a windowless room on the west side of Manhattan. That just does not strike me to make very much sense. So when I can get out in a situation in which I can bring some of my experience as a reporter to bear on the story, and when I can grow as a person, as a reporter, and learn by being there, and when it makes me a better person to come back to do the broadcast in New York for those days and weeks and months that follow, when I'm talking about what's happening in China, when I really know what I'm talking about, I've been there, I've seen it, I've talked to the people, and I think that's an advantage to the viewer. I think the times when it's a mistake to go is when one does it only for promotion, for publicity, or just to stand in front of the building and sort of say, hi folks, I'm here. Now we've all done it, we've all made our mistakes with that. So that's the way I feel about it. I may be wrong about it, but certainly on a story such as Tiananmen Square, one, listen, I'd like to think there's still enough of a competitor in me. We like to beat the other guy. We like to be someplace where the other person isn't. And that's part of what makes the news business so much fun. And on that one, we had an edge. We win some, lose some. That one we won, so naturally I feel better about that than maybe some others.
The events of this past year have just been momentous. It's very difficult to put in context the history that's piling up around us, but is there room in objective reporting for a taste of optimism, of some hope?
Oh, I think so. I'm an optimist by nature, and I think there's a lot of room for optimism in most reporting, but particularly now. And part of what happened in 1989, for one of the few times in my adult lifetime, clearly this was a year that gave hope a chance. It really brought hope alive. Listen, communism is now politically obsolete. It's intellectually discredited as an economic system. It's no longer manageable. The Cold War is, I don't want to say completely gone, but it's diminished greatly. Boy, I find that ground for a lot of optimism and a lot of hope.
How do you think those experiences changed you, standing in Tiananmen Square and then standing in front of the Berlin Wall and watching what was happening there?
Well, one, it added to my humility. That I've always said that daily journalism will make you humble, and it does, because you realize how little you know. You realize how little you matter in the great scheme of things. But when you see these kinds of stories, which are historical events, that's an overworked phrase in most journalist vocabulary, including mine, I really got excited about it, and still am. And that we were talking about hope before. You know, so much of what you cover will discourage you. AIDS is a terrible situation, terrible disease, and if you cover very many AIDS stories, you can come away discouraged. And I pick that as only one example. But this kind of story, what happened in China, although for the moment it went sour, it'll be back, and there'll be another day of hope. I really get excited about what it can mean to our children and our children's children.
You enjoy moving around quite a bit. You've had a chance to do that not only with the CBS Evening News, but 48 Hours has put you out in the country with your finger on the pulse of a lot of different subjects. Do you like doing that show?
Well, I do like doing that broadcast a lot. Look, I love news. Anything to do with news I like. I particularly like 40 Hours because it's something new, experimental. We're trying to experiment with a new form of news that has integrity, news that has accuracy and fairness, but also has a freshness to it. And so I particularly enjoy that. Moving around, you know, it goes with the territory, doesn't it?
Well, we're awfully glad it brought you here to the Twin Cities.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I enjoyed talking with you, and thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for being
here. It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching the 5 o'clock news on Channel 4.
WCCO Radio and Channel 4 are proud to welcome some of hockey's greatest legends to Met Center on January 13th for the Northwest Airlines Hockey Legends Classic. At center ice, from the Bruins, 5-time NHL scoring champion and 2-time league MVP, Phil Esposito. On left wing, look for the cannon shot, the Blackhawks' Dennis Hull. And at right wing, another scoring machine, Reggie Leach from Philadelphia. These legends join other greats like Darryl Sittler, Kit Martin, Gilles Malache, Pat Stapleton, and more when they take on the North Star's own legendary team of Bill Goldsworthy, J.P. Parisi, Dennis Baruch, Lou Nanny, Tom Reed, and the return of Willie Plett. The Legends Classic starts at 5 p.m. and will benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Then watch the North Stars battle the Detroit Red Wings starting at 7:30. Tickets at Met Center, Ticketmaster, or call 989-5151. The Northwest Airlines Hockey Legends Classic, welcomed by WCCO Radio and Channel 4.
Well, that's about it. Let's go add it up.
Hello. So your daddy's car had an accident?
Yeah.
Did your daddy bring it to Abra because they give a lifetime guarantee on all body and structural repairs?
I don't know.
Well, then why did your daddy bring it to Abra?
Because he wanted to be safe for his family. Gotta go.
When safety counts, you want to be sure it's Abra AUT Body, your collision specialist.
Watch the Gophers shoot for the big time in the Big Ten all season long on Channel 4.
We have some entertainment news for you tonight, beginning with Prince. He'll be in the spotlight later this month at the American Music Awards in L.A. Prince will receive a Special Achievement Award for his contributions to music and his influence on the 1980s rock scene. He's the second entertainer to get that award. Michael Jackson won it last year.
Dress rehearsals got underway today for the next production at the Children's Theater in Minneapolis. Mother Goose opens January 12th through March. The show by playwright Constance Congdon weaves traditional Mother Goose rhymes into a mixture of comedy and music. Mother Goose runs through March. And this week, a Pulitzer Prize-winning play comes to the screen. The movie is called Driving Miss Daisy and stars Jessica Tandy and Morgan Freeman. But it also features Dan Aykroyd in an unusual role. Unusual for him, at least, because it's not funny. It is a serious part. Entertainment reporter Bill Carlson talked with Aykroyd recently in New York City.
My mother's a little high-strung. Now, the fact is, you'd be working for me. She can say anything she likes, but she can't fire you. You understand?
Such is the charge Dan Aykroyd, as the son of Jessica Tandy, makes to Morgan Freeman in the film Driving Miss Daisy. Though it is a comedy, Aykroyd's part is essentially a straight dramatic role, a choice that co-star Tandy admires.
It's wonderful that Dan Aykroyd had the sense to want to do it. It's wonderful when you do something entirely different. I don't think I could ever do what he does, but what he's so brilliant at, the sort of wonderful comedy. But I'd love to have a try one day.
Mama, cars don't behave. They are behaved upon. Fact is, you demolished that Chrysler all by yourself.
Aykroyd feels the opportunity to do a mixture of dramatic and serious roles is ideal.
I like what some of my colleagues in comedy are doing these days. You know, you've got the nice mix of the dramatic and the serious and the light humor, you know, Planes and Trains and Automobiles and Uncle Buck for John Candy and Parenthood and Roxanne for Steve Martin and Big for Tom Hanks. It's a beautiful mix.
Huh?
Yes.
You're my best friend.
No, go on now, Miss Daisy.
No,
You
really. You are.
And this particular production?
I hope it makes an anti-stratification statement, you know, really that stations in life and class structure and all of that is really just, you know, so silly. You know, it also shows we've got a long way to go, too, in human relations. It's by no means over, you know, the stones and the walls have not cracked in South Africa yet, and when that happens, you know, that'll be a really indication of things that have been accomplished.
Aykroyd's new career direction comes at a time when he has also become a new father.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, look at the world that she's been born into. We've got the Berlin Wall coming down. We've got communists trying to be capitalists. We've got capitalists now in industry who, you know, are shooting up fluorocarbons, polluting the ozone layer, stripping it. And now we've got these communists who are going to have to industrially pollute to come up to the free market speed. I hope my daughter goes into environmental law. I think that's the career of the age.
With Dan Aykroyd in New York City, Bill Carlson, WCCO Television News.
Driving Miss Daisy opens on Friday.
Mom used to say that days like this, gray and cool, good time to sit down to a hot bowl of tomato soup. And today, the makers of Campbell's Soup chose Minneapolis to hype the production of the 20 billionth can of the stuff. Why the Twin Cities? Well, it seems that we have one of the highest per capita consumption rates of tomato soup anywhere. Stars like Rita Moreno, skater Jill Trenery recounted their first bowls ever. And MC Robin Leach of Rich and Famous fame read a proclamation from Mayor Fraser, and we don't know why.
Now, therefore, I, Donald M. Fraser, Mayor of the City of Minneapolis, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, January 9, 1990, as Tomato Soup Day in Minneapolis. And
sometimes it's really hard for me to believe I'm here. 8 years ago, I was 16, pregnant and scared. I dropped out of school and just waited for things to get worse. Then one day I got a call from Mrs. Jensen, my art teacher. She said, "Rachel, you've got real talent. Don't walk away from it now."
You know, that woman didn't just give me an education. What she gave us, was a future.
Ashland Oil believes teachers change lives.
iLab is joining the Pearl family. Introducing Pearl Vision Express. Same great people, same great quality eyewear, same fast 1-hour service, and to celebrate, free glasses. Just present the coupon from newspapers and magazines. When you buy one pair of glasses, you'll get a second pair free. Now at Pearl Vision Express.
They're tearing up the court with tenacious defense and an awesome airborne assault. Coach Clem Haskins' team is fast-breaking for the top of the Big Ten, and Midwest Sports Channel is following the Golden Gophers every step of the way. See the Gophers take on the Purdue Boilermakers Thursday night at 7 on Midwest Sports Channel. Good stuff.
Well, for those who like their winters chilly, this was more like it today, huh, Matt?
This was a lot more like winter, Colleen. You're absolutely right. What we've had out there, a lot of clouds today, and we've got a northwesterly flow. That's made it feel a lot more like wintertime. No 40s out there this afternoon, but some high pressure is going to move in and give us some partial clearing. And this January thaw that we're in is going to be with us for a few more days, but temperatures are going to be more winter-like at times through the rest of the week because in the upper levels of the atmosphere, that airflow by this weekend is going to take a more northwesterly track, and that's going to allow some of that Arctic air to just graze across much of Minnesota and over most of Wisconsin, so temperatures a little more winter-like. The January thaw, though, has been with us, and for those of you who are wondering, the Minnesota definition of a January thaw has to do with unusually mild weather marked by melting temperatures, often sunshine and some southwest winds. Now, in New England, it typically occurs the third week of January, but there's not a statistical peak in Minnesota, and the time of the thaw varies here. Our warmest high temperature in January is typically on the 9th of the month, and that happens to be today. It looks like we are going to have above normal temperatures through the week, so if you haven't had a real good opportunity to get out there and do some of those outdoor activities during this thaw, you'll have a couple more days to do so, Colleen. And the coldest time of the month is yet to come. That's typically January 25th, so there's more winter-like weather on the way. Currently, it's cloudy and 25, some clearing in 17, while cloudy skies and sprinkles tomorrow with a high temperature of 37, so if there's any snow left, we should be melting it probably by the end of this week. Colleen?
All right, thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
If you've just joined us, here are some of the day's top stories. The Space Shuttle Columbia is in orbit. It took off this morning on a mission to retrieve a research satellite. The State Board of Education today approved a plan requiring school districts to provide special classes such as foreign languages. Some small school districts say they can't afford it. And today, Governor Rudy Perpich named Minneapolis Attorney Tom Borman as the new Commerce Commissioner. He replaces Mike Hatch, who quit yesterday to consider entering the governor's race.
A group of AIDS activists is urging people not to get tested for the AIDS virus in Minnesota. The group is known as the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, known as ACT UP. It claims the state health department has failed to protect the anonymity of those who take the test. The health department denies that charge.
Health and Science reporter Ann Cheever is here to tell us what impact the testing boycott will have on efforts to control the epidemic.
Well, Colleen, it's hard to gauge at this point. For one thing, we're not sure how many people will follow the recommendation to get tested for AIDS. The action, however, does raise the issue of the necessity of testing. Some argue the risks outweigh the benefits. Despite that, thousands of Minnesotans each year voluntarily get tested for AIDS. There are all kinds of reasons.
Room 111 St. Paul. It's where some 2,000 people each year come to get tested for AIDS.
Not knowing is what makes you nervous. So I just be careful. You know, they get it once a year, and just like a physical.
But some AIDS activists have questioned the benefits of testing. They argue there is no cure for AIDS. The information may be emotionally disturbing. Patients may risk discrimination, positive or negative results. As for protecting the public,
people are safe in their behavior. They don't have to worry about getting tested. The only benefit that we know of to being tested is that you may be able to have access to some treatments sooner.
others have argued for more widespread AIDS testing. The results could help health officials keep better track of the disease. Patients may benefit from early treatment.
Because if that damage is greater than a certain amount, you are probably better off taking AZT, and if it's even greater, you're better off taking one of the treatments that prevents pneumocystis.
Since 1985, the state health department has required doctors and clinics to report all positive HIV results. The state does not require any name verification. Informing sex partners is left up to the patient. But even if a patient chooses to submit a true name, the health department says the information is confidential. Some doctors believe that.
I personally think that state health departments nationwide and our state health department as well have a essentially perfect record of keeping HIV information sound. The problem here is that not all governments.
That may not be the policy of other government departments, and that's why some AIDS activists are very worried.
Why this recent call for a testing boycott? Haven't these concerns existed all along?
Well, the AIDS activists are worried that the state health department is pressuring these clinics to get the real names of people that go in to get tested. And there is one clinic now that used to assign numbers to people that didn't want to give any name. But the issue's kind of moot, because if you don't want to give your name, you can make up one. And in a sense, it is confident or anonymous.
All right. Well, thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
We're going to be right back. You're watching the 5 o'clock news on Channel 4.
Come share the spirit of a distant land, Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay, Florida.
Celebrate the day. Celebrate the life you live. Let your soul play. Let your soul sing. Let your soul laugh. Let your soul love. Let your soul dance. Your soul is filled with happiness when the day comes to an end. But soon enough tomorrow comes and your soul can dance again.
Busch Gardens at Tampa Bay, no place else.
Red Lobster.
Tonight, try 30 shrimp for just $8.95. Golden fried shrimp. Grilled. Shrimp scampi. 30 shrimp on one plate, just $8.95. Only at Red Lobster.
As we enter a new decade, WCCO TV asked Twin Cityans what's important for the future. On January 1st, Channel 4 began news for the 90s with a look at the issues that will significantly affect us in the decade to come. Technology in the 90s promises advances in transportation, agriculture, and communication. But what's developed in the future depends on what people are willing to pay for. Join WCCO TV as we explore our future in a special series of Dimension Reports. News for the 90s, tonight at 10 on Channel 4.
On Inside Edition.
This is florid when I have to leave the country.
He is a man who escaped the tyranny of Romania 23 years ago, but left behind a son. Now he is journeying back to search for the son he believes was killed in the revolution.
I regained the country, but I lost the son.
But at the end of his journey, he found more than the changes in his country.
Inside Edition, Tuesday night at 10:35 on Channel 4.
Do you know someone who's warm and friendly one day, hates you the next?
I couldn't decide who I was. I was like two different people. I was a good person and an evil person.
Borderline personalities on the next Oprah Winfrey Show.
Wednesday at 4 on Channel 4.
Here's a preview of an item coming up at 6. Last spring, the state legislature ordered that the Minnesota high school hockey tournament be split into 2 classes. The plans for doing that will be revealed tomorrow. And our sports department has learned that hockey coaches all around the state are upset with what they think might be in that plan. Scott Reynolds will have the story at 6. And if you have just joined us, you missed our interview with Dan Rather a few minutes ago.
That's right. He's in the Twin Cities, and he's going to give a speech tonight to the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce. And he's about to deliver the CBS Evening News from our studios in downtown Minneapolis. Mr. Rather is just down the hall from us in our other studio, where they built a set that will eventually look just like the one in New York City. In fact, we've set up our own camera there in the studio so you could get this kind of behind-the-scenes look as Mr. Rather gets ready to do this newscast just a few seconds from now. Not very far, about 17 or 18 seconds. Usually, when we toss it to Mr. Rather, we have to sort of throw it overhand, rear way back, and throw it all the way to New York. But in this case, we only have to kind of get it rolling down the hall a little bit. We can throw this one underhand.
It's not often that he travels with his show, he said. And now, here's Dan Rather and CBS.
Noriega stays in the same jail for now. Congressional outrage over the price of oil, and the shuttle's up again, this time with a big job. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from CBS station WCCO TV in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Good evening.